Oh hey guys, Ryle here in our crappy studio. Last fall we invited the Mamo guys in for an awesome Harry Potter debate, and it looked like this. We had so much fun that we wanted to do it again, but this time we kicked it up about 14 notches. Welcome to the debate. Let's go meet our moderator, Matt Brown. Matt, we're really glad to have you back in the studio, this time as the moderator.
I'm excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you. So, what's the topic of debate today?
Well, today we're going to be asking, are comic book superhero movies a lasting, viable genre unto themselves?
Wow, that's going to be interesting. And who's going to be battling it out?
Well, my partner on Mamo, Matthew Price, is going to be taking the forward position, and my antagonist from row3.com, Kurt Halfyard, is going to be going against.
Excellent. Well, let's get things started.
To be clear, we're going to be talking about comic book superhero movies, not just any movie that was ever based on a comic book. Road to Perdition need not apply. We are going to be starting with introductory statements, and the debate as a whole is going to be judged by our jury, who are sitting right over there. We flipped a coin before this all started, and Mr. Price is going to be going first. Matthew Price, go!
Kurt, I gotta tell you, I am a little mystified that I have to actually stand up here and defend what, you know, by all intents and purposes, is the most popular and critically well-received genre that's come in the last 20 years. And it's more than 20 years that it's been coming. You know, sure, there are some bad movies in this genre. There's bad movies in every genre. I know you're gonna come back at me with Daredevil. That's fine. You come back at me with whatever you want. My point stands. Not only are these, pound for pound, often some of the best movies made in a given year, but look, we are still in the early stages of this. The whole genre is only 20, 30 years old. At this point in the Western genre, Tom Mix was on a horse singing to that horse. We are far from at the best of this.
That was 4. Let's hear against. Kurt Halfyard, go!
Well, first off, thank you for having me. And Matt, I don't even need to get into examples just yet. I think time is on my side. I have 100 years of Hollywood bouncing from one trend to the next to the next. We have the screwball comedies and the musicals of the 30s and 40s. We have the westerns, which you brought up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But we're in the 21st century now, and everything moves faster. Howard Hawks may have made Rio Bravo 3 times over 15 years, but we're already on the second reboot of Spider-Man. We're on the second reboot of Batman. Just the simple fact that we're making the same movies again and again already spells the end of comic book movies. Like, how much will audiences take into the same property twice, 3 times, 4 times?
Matt Brown, moderator of tonight's debate. Favorite superhero movie and why?
I hate to go with the obvious choice, but Dark Knight, pretty much all the way through. I think that basically that movie is perfect.
Perfect, you say. That's interesting.
Now we're going to be moving into a question period. I'm going to ask some questions of the debaters. I'm going to start with Mr. Price. Kurt brings up the reboot factor. What do you have to say to that? These movies are getting made over and over and over again. What is that? Is that healthy?
Okay, first of all, Kurt brought it up and then made my point for me when he mentioned that Rio Bravo had been made 3 times. I want to take your point at face value, which is that somehow that westerns and musicals do not constitute legitimate long-term genres. For me, if a genre lasts 25 or 30 years, that's pretty long-term. Otherwise, the only genres that are real genres are drama and comedy.
I would actually say that we're at a peak right now. And while there are so many things in production and there's so much money invested in this, you probably have 5 to 6 years of profitability. But when that ends, there's nowhere to go but back to square one. And the real question will be, are audiences willing to take that?
Kurt, you bring up the notion of the future. What needs to happen for a genre to become healthy that you feel is not happening with superhero movies?
Well, I just think that the superhero movie is, at this point, is very, very constrained. We are still doing origin stories, and when they try to step outside the origin story box, they get stung for it. If you play it really simple, you're just retreading what's already done before.
One of the things that I think is impactful about the genre, and one of the reasons that they've been able to stay as simple as they've stayed, is that there is a psychological primal thing that happens when a guy picks up a bus and throws that bus down the street. And you can discount it as like, oh, that's a pandering to the audience, but I don't think hitting someone at their psychological core is pandering. There's powerful stuff in these stories that you just don't get at through any other type of storytelling.
But we're in cinema, we're in wide popular culture terms.
Look, we don't have to have something be successful
All right, no, we
across
have got
the
to
world.
break
Yes,
this.
we do.
have to
On the
Gentlemen,
button.
we need to bring this to a close. It is time for the lightning round.
Kurt Halfyard, what's your favorite superhero movie and why?
Well, I'm a big fan of Ang Lee's The Hulk, particularly because they managed to take a comic book narrative and turn it into a filmic Greek tragedy.
Interesting.
And we're back. Now it's time for the lightning round. And in the lightning round, these gentlemen's loquacity is going to be at jeopardy. The minute they become boring, the jury is going to ring a bell and we're going to kick over to the other guy. We're going to start with Kurt. Kurt, this genre has been dependent on adaptations thus far. Is that a pro? Is it a con? What?
Well, we've only had 2 successful non-adaptations, so we've got Hancock and we've got The Incredibles, but I don't think it's necessary.
You know what I find fascinating about this, and about the genre in specific, is that even the films that are failures, they are interesting failures.
Wither Ghost Rider.
Wither Unleashed the Hulk, which ends with a black box theater presentation worthy of Beckett.
But that's a good thing. I can't believe I will actually switch positions to argue that Hulk is better.
But I'm saying, even when they're not ready for it, even when the movies stretch, they stretch in ways that you're not expecting them to. And to me, that's a strength of a genre.
And they get rebooted 2 years later.
The source material comic books, they were written for small children. These movies are for everybody. Is that a disconnect?
It's only a disconnect if you only base the movies on the ones that were written for small children. The fact is that people have grown up with comics, and as they've grown up with them, the comics themselves have gotten more complex. Often the films are based on the more complex, more adult ideas.
I don't know if the current crop of comic book movies, they tend to appeal to the inner child rather than to the adult.
But even if we take your point, which is that they only appeal to one aspect of people, that doesn't make it not a genre. Westerns do not appeal to every single type of audience member, but it's a genre.
The fundamental problem with comic books where we are now, it seems to be only the origin movies that sell. And where do we go from there?
Dark Knight's not an origin film, and it sold better than any.
Matt Price, favorite superhero movie and why?
So for me, it's Batman Begins. It really gives people a sense that there can be new ways to tell these stories.
I'm interested.
Superhero movies, yay or nay, closing statements. Kurt Halfyard, 30 seconds, go.
Okay, Marvel has taken ownership of their properties and is now making movies under their authorship. The same thing they did in the early 90s, which caused the whole comic book crash. DC and Sony are making films that are being made only to fulfill contracts. Is this what we want in quality cinema, and will this yield quality cinema? And where do we go at the end of the Justice League and Avengers heroes?
With the contrary view, Mr. Price, go.
So my opponent, quite esteemed, has dealt only in what might happen. Only in the idea that in the future, these films will cease to matter. And my point is that even if that's true, even if I concede that point, superhero movies are an absolutely valid genre of filmmaking. They're a valid genre of filmmaking based solely on what has already come. And maybe there's even greater things to come. But that's okay. Even if he's right, I still win. So thank you all for having me.
This is one hot debate. I am literally sweating. Now our jury has the tough job of deciding which of these two great debaters made their case the best. They're going to come to a consensus and then present their decision to the moderator, which it looks like they're about to do now.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you. The verdict to Mr. Price.
Well played, sir.
Congratulations. Congratulations to both of you. It was beautifully fought. It was a hard-won battle. It was a finally fought battle. It was finally lost. It was finally won.
Well, that's it for the great superhero comic book film adaptation debate of 2011. Stay tuned to thesubstream.com all summer long as we cover your favorite superhero films. And thanks to all our participants, Matt and Matt from the Memo Podcast, Kurt Halfyard from Row3.com, Sasha James from the Final Girl Project, and Natasha Wong, aka Asian Girl, really the best Twitterer out there. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.